Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Accomplished Intensive. We turned out we had 3 weeks off instead of 2 weeks off. Thank you all for your grace last week. I am back in the land of the living, or I should say in the land of the healthy. Getting my energy back, reintroducing foods into my diet, feeling well, and very appreciative for the support that you guys gave me last week. But I am really excited to get the second part of the Accomplished Intensive rolling, because this is the time when we take what we did, what we learned, what we discovered. Hey, Melinda, let me change to speaker view. I just started saying hello to everyone. So for those of you who are watching the recording, yes, I'm just grateful to be back, ready to get rolling. Yes, this is where I was. This is where we take everything we discovered, uncovered, learned in part one, and we're ready to apply it. We're ready to live it. Part one was all about the internal work. This part is about the external stuff, getting your life into alignment with who you really are. So I'm crazy excited to be getting this going. And for some of you who might be hesitating, feeling a little nervous about this next part, you're in good company. You're in good, company with people who you can trust, who are going to be here for you, are going to support you, who are going through what you're going through, feeling a little bit nervous about making changes in life and making decisions and committing to things and moving forward. But again, and tonight is all about the people who surround you, right? So really take advantage of the people who surround you in this course, in the community, because you definitely have some high vibe women in your life right now. So as per usual, I'm going to kick us off with the Marianne Williamson quote, still very apropos to applying it to the external world. So here goes. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So here's where we're going to start to let your own light shine. And I am excited about that. So before we get rolling into relationships, I just want to underscore the work from the last session, the values work, your personal mission statement, superpowers. Definitely, if you haven't completed that, take the next few days to get that done, because that is going to really help you for the next few weeks. It's the groundwork. So, knowing who you are, what you're about, it brings clarity and confidence in making decisions. When you're clear on your values and your personal mission statement, it makes it a lot easier to determine who's a good fit in your life, right? Who you want to give more time, more energy, more resources to, because they're in alignment with your values, right? And so they help you on your path. They help you on your mission, or maybe they share the same mission as you. If you're not clear on your own personal mission, how do you know if somebody is on the same path as you, who you can join forces with? So that's the good work that you want to get done as we roll into this next phase. And for those of you who got it done, you're definitely going to feel like it's a lot easier to move forward with that work done. So tonight we're going to cover the various relationships in our lives. We're going to talk about low vibe people, high vibe people, and then people who kind of round out our life in general. So low vibe people. I'm going to read this right from the book. And I believe relationships is chapter 7 in the book. So low vibe people, you know, you want to think of those people who you need to boost yourself up before seeing, right? You know they're going to be there, and you just have we've all done this where we know somebody who pushes our buttons or drains us is going to be where we're going, and we can't avoid them. So we have to kind of pump ourselves up, you know, to go. Sometimes we have to have a talk with ourselves, you know, when we have to say things like, don't let them get to you, you know, don't let them push your buttons, or don't react the way you reacted last time, you know, or I'm trying to think of the person who can just be really draining, you know, I have to tell myself, like, keep your poker face on, keep your keep your poker face on, because otherwise I can wind up rolling my eyes, looking at them like, are you crazy? You know, that sort of thing. And that's not who I want to be for people. So, you know, the people you have to like give yourself a pep talk before you're seeing. These people might always be complaining, right? They're like, if, you know, something goes wrong, they're like all over it. And if something goes right, they've even got something snarky to say about that too. Like, oh, well, this is, you know, it's not going to last, or that sort of thing must be, you know, an exception to the rule, that sort of thing. They just can't fully enjoy the moment or see past, you know, see the bright side, get past the obstacle. They're obsessed with it. You know, again, when things are going well, they're looking for and pointing out the negative. They talk mostly about themselves. You know, if you know that person who, you know, you're sharing something going on in your life and the conversation immediately comes back to them, or they start talking about themselves, and they will talk and talk and talk about themselves, feeling like you're super entertained by their stories for long periods of time. And when they stop, they don't even think to like ask you how you're doing. There's just a pause, you know, and they're almost waiting for you to ask follow-up questions about them. And if they ask about you, they get distracted before you're done, or immediately turn the conversation back to themselves. They leave you feeling drained. You know, I can think of somebody in my life currently right now, obviously not someone who's super close, but they're on the periphery of an organization that I belong to. And they are constantly telling stories about how other people are constantly messing things up, right? And if it weren't for them, like, they're the hero in every one of their stories. Like, the people that surround them are constantly mess them up, but thank God they have themselves, so they come in and save the day, right? And it's always something. They will go on about all the bad things that happened to them that week, because they want it's almost as if they want everyone to see them as like this like superhero who overcomes all this tragedy and, you know, all this stuff. But all it does is leave people kind of being like, geez, like, God, like nothing good to share, no positive in the life. Like, their only positive is like, yeah, so, you know, this is my life and this is what I put up with, right? It just leaves everyone kind of shaking their heads and just wondering like, what is going on? So, you know, these are the people that, like, in your mind you question, like, are they okay? Are they okay? So, and with low vibe people, there can be a range from chronically low vibe to situationally or acutely low vibe, right? We all go to that low vibe place on occasion. Like last week when I was ill, I was low vibe. Right? There was not a lot of positive energy being generated by me, but given what I was dealing with, I really needed to focus on myself. Life really needed to be about me. And the fact of the matter was, I was unhealthy and bad things were happening, right? So so from that perspective, I was situationally low vibe, right? And we can have grace for people who are situationally low vibe, right? They've gotten laid off from work, or they got into a car accident, or they're sick, or they lost somebody important in their life. Like, life has highs and lows. So, if you have somebody in your life who typically is neutral to high vibe, we can have grace for them when they're low vibe. And we know they need our energy because it's situational. Like, and they'll do the same for us. Like, you guys were very high vibe for me last week. Like, when I was feeling low, you guys were all love, all support, right? You gave of your energy, you gave of your concern, right? And I was able to take that energy, and it made me feel better, but now that I'm recovered, you don't have to, I know I always have your love and support, but you don't have to shower me with love and support. You don't have to give over week after week, right? And make exceptions for me. We don't have to move calls. I'm not going to show up late or be unprepared. You don't have to constantly be extending me grace. It was situational, right? And so even if you come across somebody in your life where you're like, wow, they're kind of low vibe, if it's situational, right? If it's acute, like, that's life. Like, that's the norm. It's what you want to be mindful of is the people who are always complaining. They're always needing your energy, always needing your grace. There's probably like one dramatic excuse after another why they can't keep their word, why they're not happy, why they're late, why, they always have an excuse for why you can't possibly hold them to their word or expect a lot from them. That's a little different, and if you think about it, my clients are typically situationally or acutely low vibe, right? They've gotten themselves into a place where it's like, oh, they're frustrated, they're stuck, they don't know what's going on. There is a problem, and they've been putting out so much energy, trying to cope and get by and deal with it, figure it out, try tons and tons of different ways of dealing with what's going on, that by the time they get to my door, they are low vibe, right? They need some support, they need some help, but that I'm in the business of that. And the thing is occasionally somebody who's chronically low vibe will also present themselves for coaching. And I will say, over the years, I've gotten a lot better at identifying whether somebody is situationally low vibe or chronically low vibe. And it's not to say I don't take on clients who are chronically low vibe, but I won't work with them unless they're working with another professional, a therapist, a counselor, something like that. And sometimes there are clients I have who are situationally low vibe, and the situation calls for them to get another type of support as well. It's not just chronically low vibe, but without a doubt, if somebody's chronically low vibe, they may not be a good candidate for coaching, or they need a lot of support from a therapist or a counselor to be able to get through, because coaching is not about going back into the past and healing old wounds and that sort of thing. So the thing is you want to avoid as much as possible chronically low vibe people. Well, because if you're not trained, right, on how to help these people, you can end up in a codependent situation, right, where this person is using you almost like a battery, right? Or an electrical outlet, where they've gotten to a place where their thought patterns are constantly depleting their energy, right? We talked about the stress reactions last time. They are constantly in level 1, level 2, right? So their energy is constantly being depleted, and oftentimes unintentionally and unconsciously, they will attach themselves to high vibe people. The high vibe people who are willing to give them their energy, and they will take it, and they will take it gratefully, not realizing that they're sucking the life out of those high vibe people. Or maybe they do. Maybe, they have become aware of it. I find typically they're not aware. Because they are so chronically low vibe, they're very unaware of the consequences or the impact of their actions, because they are so focused on themselves. All they know is you give them energy, they'll take it, right? If you're willing to give it, they will take it. Now, on the flip side, somebody who's situationally or acutely low vibe, you can be supportive of them while gently calling them out, right? A little bit to help them see where they are. Now, if they're sick or they're grieving, you obviously don't have to call out the problem. They know what the problem is. But say they're unhappy at work, right? They've gotten to a situation where they're frustrated, or in their business, they're not achieving their goals, or they keep hitting roadblocks. If you're a support system to this person, you can call out, hey, you might need some support. You may need to make some different decisions. You know, this isn't, and you call them out in a gentle way that lets them know who they are, right? Reminds them of who they are. Like, hey, you're better than this. Like, you know, this situation is always bringing you down. You're not as happy as you used to be, you know, that sort of thing. It's not that they may not need, counseling or therapy or anything like that. You know, sometimes I know if I get into a low vibe state, I just need a swift kick in the pants. Like, you know, sometimes that's called for, and you can trust your intuition. If this person is close to you, you know, it's a good friend or a family member, you can kind of pick up on what is it they need from me in this moment. Typically they need listening, right? They need someone to hear them. They need love. They need support. And sometimes they need that person who's going to tell them the truth, right? And that can be very helpful for them. Chronically low vibe people typically need some sort of intervention. And that intervention comes from professionals, from therapists, counselors, pastors, or it's coordinated by professionalism. You know, sometimes, I mean, this can honestly look like an intervention from addiction or alcoholism, that sort of thing. Again, it's typically coordinated by professionals and therapists. You know, I say, and I know I get this feedback sometimes because I'm often saying, minimize or remove these people from your life, you know, as much as possible, you know, but sometimes we can't completely avoid them. I obviously just shared there's somebody on the periphery of my life who is a low vibe person. I avoid them as much as possible. You know, typically we're in a crowd when we're together. There is usually no less than 30 some odd people in the room with us. You know, I have 25 plus other people I can spend my time with. And although I see this person, I see their behaviors, you know, I don't necessarily have to interact with them beyond politeness and human decency. This is the thing. It's not like these are bad people per se. It's not like they're horrible people. We can extend them goodwill. We can extend them love. We can wish, you know, good things for them. You know, we can hope that eventually they see the light, you know, they see the impact their behavior is having on themselves and other people. But I usually, you know, without my heart breaking, my heart goes out to these people, right? It's not that I feel sorry for them. It's I extend love to them because it's hard to be in their own skin, right? Can you imagine being that person where that's the way you're coping through life? That's the way you're getting by. But I don't feel like I have to save them because I've made that mistake in the past where I felt like, oh, I could save this person. I can help them see the light. I can be the one to make a difference for them. But that ended up being a bad situation for both of us. I became a codependent for somebody. Luckily, it was very short term, but remembering the experience, I remember the joy in my life leaving my body. Like I could physically feel a lack of joy in my life because I was trying to save this person. And the more I tried to help them, the worse they got. And so that was a vital lesson learned. So now my strategy is, you know, I love them as a human being. I love them as a child of God. I am polite to them. I am respectful of them. I appreciate them for the good that they can bring to a situation because every now and again, right, they can crack a joke, lighten the room, make people laugh. But at the same time, I don't become overly invested in them. And if they were to seek my help, I would have a conversation around, you know, them getting some guidance or support, that sort of thing. So, you know, I would say for you, a good strategy, if you have someone like that in your life that you do have to spend a little bit of time with, breathe through the interactions, right? Be very conscious, be very aware not to take their energy on, not to take their mindset on, not to let them ruin your experience, whatever the experience is, right? You have to make a conscious choice. This person is not going to ruin the morning for me, or they are not going to, like, you know, hijack my day. Don't take anything personally, right? That they say or do. Don't, you know, because sometimes I know I can get into a mindset of, well, maybe I can fix them, right? And then then I take what they do personally, right? And then step away as quickly as you can, right? You know, and maybe, you know, kind of like imagine like a mental shower, like where like good energy is flowing over your body, washing away the negative, washing away the complaints, you know, all of that stuff. So you can get back to your set point, right, of good energy, high vibe energy. So let me take a sip of water. And then we'll talk about high vibe people. So here we go. Here's the flip side of that. High vibe people. So these are people you typically get excited and happy at the thought of spending time with, right? As soon as you make the plan that you guys are going to get together, you're going to see them, there's a yay, and you're super excited. Like, you know, the days that I wake up and I see on my calendar, I'm talking to, you know, could even be just one person, one high vibe person who makes me laugh, makes me smile, you know, makes me feel good talking to them. Like, that's a light in my day. Even the hardest day can feel pretty awesome because I know I'm going to be interacting with them. They leave you feeling better than when you arrived, right? No matter how you showed up, at the end of it, you're left feeling really good. You know, like that was just you're so appreciative of the experience. And the other thing, they make you feel appreciated and respected, right? They see you, right? High vibe people see you, they recognize you, and you feel that. And they want your highest good, right? You get a sense of that when you're talking to them. They want just good things for you. They, you know, they aren't focused on themselves, right? They're focused on you, right? And showering you with their goodwill. They're always eager to hear what you have going on, right? If you're a high vibe person in a conversation with another high vibe person, there's a lot of like, no, you go first. No, you go first. No, I want to hear about you. Get me caught up. I'm so excited. You know, I just want to hear everything that you have going on, right? There's that fun. They congratulate you on your accomplishments, even if it's small, right? Even if it's just a little thing, they're excited, right? That, you know, good things are happening for you. And they remain curious about you until you insist they give an update as well, right? If I can think of a friend I have a call with, and we're typically on the phone for about, 40 minutes to an hour, and I'm watching the clock. Like if she right from the beginning is like, you first, right? So I'll start talking. I'm looking at the clock because I want to make sure we hear about her as well. But she asks so many follow-up questions. Well, tell me about this and tell me about that, that we can end up like, and then I'm just like, we talked about me the whole time. I mean, this was fun, but like, I still don't know what's going on with you. So, like that's the experience you have. Like and at the end of a conversation, say you scheduled like a coffee date and you only had an hour to be together, you're kind of bummed you have to leave. You're excited for the time you got to spend together, but you have this feeling like, wow, we could have sat here for 3 hours. If we had 3 hours, we would have sat here for 3 hours. If we had 5, we probably could have turned this into 5 hours. Now, high vibe people are great candidates for partnerships, for collaborations, team members, masterminds, accountability partners as well, right? Because, they are, they're going to do the work, right? High vibe people, you can count on them to do what they say they're going to do. They're going to do the work. They're, self-aware and highly conscious. So they're also on the lookout for opportunities, for solutions. They don't get bogged down when things don't go well. They're like, it's more like if something doesn't go according to plan, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. Right? Or what else are we going to do? Like, this isn't working. So what are our other options? Let's keep going. They don't wallow. Right? So that makes them great to work together with. The other thing to be mindful of with high vibe people is you want to maintain your own high vibe to continue to be a good relationship for them as well, right? You want to be a good partner to a high vibe person. So, I know for myself, when I'm going to be interacting with another like high vibe person, it calls me, right, to be that better version of myself. Like, I don't want to be the complainer. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, because I know that's not the way they live their lives. So it's good for me to surround myself with high vibe people. And it's not to say like, I can't say, things aren't going well and I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry and that sort of thing, but I'm less likely to focus on those things, right? I can say it, I can feel it, they'll acknowledge it, they'll hear me out, they'll be supportive, and then I can like release it and move on. There is an intention that I want to say this because it's true, but I don't want to hold on to it. I don't want to wallow. Because I know for this other person, that's not how they live their lives either. They're more than willing to be supportive. They're more than willing to listen to me, but they're not going to hang out all day while I go on and on about how life is unfair, right? And things aren't going my way, so it calls me to be a higher version of myself with for these high vibe people. There was something else I wanted to say. The other reason you want to manage your own energy is because when you're in a high vibe state of mind, you're better able to identify other high vibe people. And you're also better able to identify a chronically low vibe person versus a situationally low vibe person, right? You're just more in tune with people's energy. And if you think about it, it makes sense. When we're lower vibe, we're very focused on ourselves. Like last week when I was not feeling well, if I had to be out in the world talking to people, I couldn't tell you, like, are they high vibe? Are they low vibe? Where are they coming from? Is this a situation, or are they kind of always like this? That sort of thing. Like that's my feelers were not going out. They were going inward. Right. So I was a little like, I wouldn't have been able to check in. So that makes sense. When we're sick, we kind of cut the outside world out and we focus on ourselves. We're not in a place where we're able to interact very well in the outside world. We're not as in tune with what is going on. Now, say I was like a little bit higher, right? I'm healthy, but I'm miserable, right? I'm miserably low vibe. Again, it's almost like being in the same state as being unwell. Again, my feelers are going inward because I'm so miserable. Like I'm unhealthy from an emotional standpoint, and maybe even a little bit psychological, right? My thought patterns are going negative, being miserable. My feelers, my healing, everything is going inward. Again, I'm cut off. So you're going to hear me say this time and time again, over and over again. Self-care, taking care of yourself, knowing where you are, knowing where your energy is. Are you in a state where you're able to determine if somebody would make a good partner for you, a good team member for you, a good new relationship, even friendship? Would this person make a good friend? Can I trust them? Do I want to give my time, my resources, my energy to this person? Are they going to reciprocate? Are they, giving back, that sort of thing? the higher our energy is, the more well we are, the better able we will be to determine those things. So then we're less likely to invest time, energy, all of that stuff in somebody who is not going to give back. They're only going to take from us, right? So again, managing your own energy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to make sure you're in a good place. And again, clients, you know, when we're in a low vibe place, we also tend to attract the pain in the ass clients, right? Because they're resonating with our energy level, right? When we're low vibe, you know, we're just not feeling good about our business and our value and what we're contributing. And guess what? We're going to attract people who are not like aware of or can sense our value and what we contribute, right? So these are the people who will argue with us over price, you know, who will, even argue over things that don't make a lot of sense. They'll complain a lot, right? That they're just in a place where, because of their low vibe, they're not able to see your value. But if that's what you're resonating, if that's what you're putting out there, they're going to be very comfortable with your energy because you're not going to challenge them, right? Like when you're high vibe, you'll get to a point where you'll say to a low vibe person, yeah, if you can't see the value, you shouldn't buy this, right? Period. Like, I'm not going to argue, right? You have nothing to prove. You can state the facts. You can share what your services are, share what your products are, give them the facts, but you're not going to, sit there and argue with them. If they don't see the value, they don't see the value, and you cut your losses and you move on. That's a very high vibe thing to do, right? It's when we're low vibe, when we're not quite sure of our value, or we get ourselves into a place where we're feeling kind of desperate about things, that we'll start to put up with things that don't feel good for us, right? That chameleon will kick in and like, I'll make things okay. It's fine. Yeah, they're only paying me half price, or they argue about everything when they get their order. Like something's always like wrong or missing, or, they're not happy about something, so, but you know what? It's just like, it's another client. It's another deal. I'll just put up with it. Wow. You're not going to have a easy time getting out of that low vibe place if this is what you're putting up with, right, on a regular basis. So there's so many benefits to taking care of our energy, making sure we're high vibe, making sure we're staying in that positive place, because our energy, our external world and the people who are in our lives will reflect the energy level that we're putting out there. When you're high vibe, like I said, you are less willing to put up with BS, right? And it doesn't necessarily it doesn't mean you become argumentative or, confrontational or anything like that, but you just get really comfortable with the fact that, like, you know what, this doesn't work for me. I'm going to move on. Right? Or this friendship, I'm putting out 3 times as much energy in this friendship as I'm getting back. So, I'm going to say something about it. And if nothing changes, then I'm just going to like phase this person out, and that's how you can do it kindly. You just spend a little less time. You make yourself a little less available. There are some relationships where you could probably just call it, like, right, like, this has been going on for a long time. I don't feel like you appreciate me. If you're not going to, give me the courtesy that I'm giving you, then, I'm just, let's just not force this, right? You can have those types of conversations. But I've also had relationships with people where I may see them every other week, that sort of thing. And then it moves to once a month, and then it moves to once a quarter, and then maybe semi-annually. And then eventually it gets to the point where they found other friends or they have other activities. And so we see each other on occasion and bump into each other at events. Right? Nobody gets hurt. It just kind of happens, and if you look back, you might hear them say something like, I don't know what happened. We just stopped hanging out. And yeah, I've got a lot going on in my life right now, that sort of thing. I mean, that's life, and we all do it. But if you are comfortable with like cutting it clean, like if it's that draining on your life, if it is that detrimental to your energy, sometimes a clean break is the way to go. Okay. Now I want to talk about people who complement your superpowers and your kryptonite, right? Like these people, like let's assume these people are neutral to high vibe, right? That at the very least, they're not taking away your energy. Ideally, they are high vibe people or high vibe people in process, right? We're all in process, right? What's the saying? I'll often joke that like I'm a work in progress, right? Like we're all works in progress. So ideally these are like, some pretty, generally high vibe people, ranging, but they're works in progress. They're trying, right? Those people who are trying, so we're thinking here about team members, partners, and collaborators. You don't want to be surrounded by people. Well, I should say this. You don't want all of the people who surround you to be people with the same strengths and personality type as you, right? And this is the mistake we can make, because it's easy for us to get along with people who share our values, share our personality type, and share our strengths, right? Because we get each other. It's easy. The conversation flows. But if you're trying to get something done, right? The fact that they're good at the same things you're good at, now you have a bunch of people who are all good at the same thing, and nobody's very good at the other things that need to get done, right? You need that balance. And here's the hard part. The people who don't share our personality types, who don't share our strengths, right? They could be the perfect complement, right, to our strengths. The things that we hate doing, they love doing, right? Typically what I've seen is they also have a different personality type as us, right? The people who love to be like the face of a project, right? Who love public speaking, who love connecting with people, who get super energized talking and, connecting with people, that sort of thing, are not the type of people who like to do the bookkeeping, the accounting, the minutia, the documenting, like checking all the like small boxes, crossing the T's, dotting the I's. That's not their strength, right? And the people who love that stuff, who love to make sure that everything is solid, right? That all the questions have been answered. Everything is in place. There is a system. It is organized, all of that stuff. They typically are not the ones who want to be going to like networking events. They don't want to be the person doing the presentation, right? They'll help put the presentation together, but they don't want to be the one speaking and doing it. Now these are extremes, but that's typically what I see is like people tend to be on a spectrum with certain skills and strengths, and people at the opposite end typically also have different personality types. So here's what goes on with that though too, is it can be harder to get along with each other because you don't understand. Like the values might be a little bit different, or they might get expressed a little bit differently. The communication styles might be different. If you think about those two types of people, they're going to communicate differently. Their needs will be different, right? The kind of support that they need will be different. So, and that doesn't make things impossible, right? And actually, if you think about most partnerships, most marriages, have yin and yang, right? If you look at your significant other, you probably can see how you're complete opposites in certain regards, and that's a good thing because you balance each other out. But it also can create conflict if you're not, and here's the thing, if you don't mutually respect and appreciate what the other person brings to the table. I have had working partnerships with the person who was the yin to my yang, right? And it worked when we were so appreciative of what the other person needed and what they brought to the table. It has not worked when there was misunderstanding and miscommunication and a lack of trying to understand, where the other person was coming from. Like if somebody's like, no, I'm set in my ways, this is the way things need to be done, and that's it, no discussion, that's not going to work. So you want to think about your team members. You want to find people who balance you as well, but there also needs to be more effort being put into the relationship, at least initially, right? Until you can get it down and understand what are their values, what are their needs, what's their communication style, what's their personality type, you know, what helps them feel supported and appreciated, you know, and what helps them to feel fulfilled, you know. And this is the thing too, when you know, for a lot of you, if like your businesses or your work goes in the direction that you want it to go in, you're going to have to start bringing on more people and accepting help, whether you're, you know, delegating, hiring, outsourcing, you know, whatever that looks like. You have to be willing to give up some of the control too, right? To consciously decide for the greater good, right? Because like I tend to attract women who like to be in control. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn if I say that most, if not all of you, have to deal with this, right? I've got to give up some control. You know, you got to think about it in this perspective. To get where I want to go, I cannot do it alone, right? And I cannot be in control of everything, right? I have to trust other people, right? I have to find the people who are really good at the things I'm either not good at or don't want to do, like my kryptonite, right? And build a relationship with them, right? That's the key too. You got to build the relationship. You don't just trust because you have to trust. You got to build the relationship, you know, and allow them to do their best work, right? And allow them to have some input. Some of my best ideas were not my ideas, right? They came from other people who were part of the community who had some feedback for me, right? And it was great feedback. It might have been hard to hear at first, right? Because, you know, as much as like we do want to get better, and I do want critical feedback, sometimes my first reaction is like, you know, but, you know, giving up the control over everything and allowing other people to have input, you know, because other people can see things that I can't necessarily see, or they're speaking to their own experience, which I'm not aware of until they share it with me. That is giving up some of the control. You're also going to have to give up doing some of the actions, right? If you're the person who normally has your hand in everything, you know, you've got to give up some of that, and possibly some decision making, you know, depending on the relationship. If you're collaborating with somebody, you know, it's not just about taking their feedback and then making the decision you want to make. You know, if you're partnering with somebody on an event or a project or something like that, you're going to have to do, you know, some compromising. If you don't, especially if you don't, obviously, if you don't see things exactly the same way, you know, if like you're close in the vision of what you want to create, but it's not exact, there's probably going to have to be some compromise, right? And giving up having control over the entire decision-making process. So lastly, what I have isn't necessarily going and diving into content, but it's a question that I want you to ponder, because sometimes we leave this up for grabs, but I'm a big believer in, obviously, in visioning, you know, what we want in our future, and intention setting. I feel like we draw to us more quickly what we need and what we want when we have a clear vision of something and we set the intention for something. So what I want you to ponder is, what other people or types of relationships do you want to attract into your life, right? And it could be as simple and concrete as, I want a massage therapist or a personal trainer in my life, or I want a coach, I want a virtual assistant, I want a friend who likes to go hiking, because none of my friends like to go hiking, right? Like that sort of thing. Like, you know, like, and obviously for me, I mean, I'm very public about this. Like, I'm looking to attract a partner. You know, I want somebody who is a partner in my life, right? Who is invested in my life, and I'm invested in theirs, like a true partnership. So think about that. Like what, you know, There was an interesting perspective I got years ago on looking at things like problems, right? And I'm using air quotes because they're not really problems. You know, like sometimes we look at things from a perspective, like if things aren't exactly the way we want them to be, we look at them from a perspective of, well, what's wrong? Right. And someone offered a different perspective to me years ago. And they were like, well, instead of asking the question, what's wrong, ask what's missing. You know, because typically something's missing. It might be information or resource or, um, I'm thinking like clarity, that sort of thing, you know. And I've been trying to apply this more to my business, right? When I'm getting to a phase right now where I can feel like changes are going to be coming, like in my business, because I'm like, nothing's wrong. There's just something missing, right? I'm feeling like some discontent. Like I love my business. I love what I'm doing, but I'm also feeling like, wow, it's been a while since I had a really wildly creative idea, right? And so what's missing? What could I be doing that would be a little more creative, would allow me to express myself a little bit more, provide better services, you know, that sort of thing. And part of me like is coming back to, gosh, that like when I ask the question, what's missing? You know, it's coming down to as simple as what's missing is I don't explain very well the process of working with me, right? I don't explain very well the journey that we're going to be on, you know, and this is before people start working with me and even right after people start working with me. I think my clients and I would have a lot more fun if they knew the journey that they were going to go on, right? As unknown, as crazy, as scary as it can be, you know, like if I can describe to people like coaching, transformational coaching, right? And I'm really getting clear on that's how I need to be more explicit that I am a transformational coach. Like I coach people around their businesses and their leadership and all of that, but I have a transformational process, right? If somebody's coming to me and they just want to do like strategy and business model and pricing and marketing, I'm getting way more clear with them. Like, yeah, that's how I feel about it, Melinda, too. Like I can talk about all of those things, but it's going to be from the perspective of who are you and how do you want to show up in the world? Right? Because I'm doing the transformational process so we can reveal more of who you are, right? And get those limiting stories, those beliefs that are holding you back, the things that are causing stress in your life. Like that's what I want to transform. You know, so I've almost got to get to a point where I'm like, this process is going to be like getting onto a raft on a river that goes through a mountain. So you're going to be going in the dark. Like we're going to be on a raft on a river going through a mountain and you're not going to be able to see very well what's going on ahead. And you're just going to have to trust me, right? Like it's almost going to have to be a description like that, you know? So then once people realize like, oh, we're on a raft in the dark on a river. Okay, that's what this is going to be like. Then they're less likely to be like, holy shit, this is scary and I don't know what's happening. And I can be like, yeah, because we're on a raft on a river in the dark, you know, and it's probably kind of cold too, you know, if we're in the middle of a mountain, you know, so that sort of thing. So asking yourself the question of what's missing, it may not be that you have to like do something super glitzy or fancy. You know, like I think that's the thing. Sometimes when we think, oh, something's missing in my life, like we think midlife crisis, right? And we've got to like go to Vegas or buy the sports car. Like our life needs to completely change to like make it more exciting and fancy it up and that whole thing. It may not be. It may be something as basic as I need to have a better explanation of what it's like to work with me. Because if my clients were more at ease, they would enjoy the process a little bit more. Right? It's like signing up to get onto a roller coaster. You know it's going to be scary, but you get on because you know it's going to be scary. That's part of the fun, right? Is the thrill and the excitement. You know, if I can, you know, describe my coaching as something like that, it's a thrill, it's exciting, it's unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. Like at some points, you're probably going to lose your stomach, right? But that can be fun. That could make things a lot more enjoyable and more fulfilling. Something as basic and what's the word I'm looking for? As unexciting as a better explanation could be what's missing. And that, for me, can also change the relationship of the people who are in my life, the people who surround me, because my clients are definitely some of the people who surround me, right? Obviously, right? And fulfill my life. One final thought on relationships, especially because this is a group of women and I focus on women. Human beings, now I'm not going to make this a man-woman thing. I'm going to speak in terms of energy. Human beings who have more feminine energy are more relationship focused, right? You're going to be, so I'm assuming that everyone who is in this program watching this video has more of a feminine lean, even though all of us show up in our lives with a lot of masculine energy, entrepreneurship, ambition, you know, to-dos, action. That's all male energy, you know, but we all generate it to get done what we need to get done. And if you're the type of person who feels depleted if you don't get a break, chances are at your core, you have more feminine energy than masculine energy. What that is going to entail and what it means is you're more focused on relationships than somebody who has a lot of masculine energy. And this shows up in the brain of people who are more masculine than feminine is, you know, the male brain can compartmentalize. You know, I've heard it said like the male brain is like little like areas. You want to think of like a grid system, almost like boxes. There's boxes in the male brain and each box holds something different. And only that box deals with that one thing. Whereas women's brains are like spaghetti. Everything's connected, everything, you're like, no, you can't separate one thing out from the other, right? A doctor's appointment that happened this morning is connected with dinner, right? In some way, we will connect everything. So we're more focused on relationships. We're more in tune with relationships. And, you know, from an evolutionary perspective, that makes sense because we were the ones who like had to make sure everyone's okay. Is everyone healthy? Is everyone taken care of? Is everyone where they need to be? You know, like head counts and children and things like that. So we were more in tune. We were also the ones who were typically taking care of the elderly, you know, that sort of thing, the dependents, the children, the elderly, you know, meals, that sort of stuff. So we're more in tune with relationships and what's going on in our relationships. This also means that if, say, we have a fight with our significant other in the morning, our significant other, who you know, from this scenario has more masculine energy, they will be upset by the fight. But when they go to work, they will lock it away in a part of their brain that will deal with it later, right? So that they can focus on what they need to do, right? Right. Whereas for us women who with more feminine energy, that's it. That fight is coming with us for the rest of the day. And we're like, we may even replay it. We're going to be upset by it. We have a harder time putting it away and compartmentalizing it. And we may even find like we cannot compartmentalizing it. Now, this has just impacted our day. And until we get right with our relationship again, it will drain our energy, right? It will take up space in our day. That's why, and I'm not saying like if something needs to be said in the morning, don't say it. Like, you know, we have to also say what we need to say because an unsaid thing in our relationship will also stay with us for the rest of the day, right? But it's important to know that that is the power our relationships have over us, right? And on the flip side, if something good in relationships happens in the morning, that could fuel us, right? And add energy for the rest of our day. So it's really important that in our relationships, we're not just like doing the chameleon, coping, getting by, putting up with stuff, tolerating, because this will take massive, massive amounts of energy. And I'm going to give her a little bit of a shout out, but I had one of my closest friends like spiraling, in my life a few years ago. And I actually hired Zoe, to help me get through that, because I was so upset. Like, this was a friend who was like bottoming out, right? But I didn't know what was going on because she was hiding a lot of things that were going on for her. She was just becoming a bitter, nasty person. She was starting to become that chronically low vibe person. And this was somebody who was not, like, when we started becoming friends, and for the first 10 years of our friendship, was not that type of person. She was typically a high vibe person. And then she became chronically low vibe. And though I suspected some things that were going on, like I wasn't fully aware of it, and she was hiding things and that sort of thing, she was just, all I knew was when I interacted with her, she was nasty. Like, she would find ways to provoke me and poke at me and that sort of thing. And it devastated me, and it had a huge impact on my business. Right? I started, like, I had a hard time getting clients while that was going on because I was so low energy, right? I was starting to become low vibe because this relationship was a low vibe relationship, and it was taking enormous amounts of energy. So I hired Zoe just as someone, like, she had this process where we talked things through, and then we did some yoga poses, and I felt restored. I also worked with her husband, Doug, who was an acupuncturist, because I knew I needed to do something for myself, right? This is how devastating relationships can be in our life if we're not dealing with it. And I can tell you, looking back with this friend, I kind of knew what was up, but I didn't want to say it, right? When you don't want to say the words because you don't know what's going to happen after that, right? You're so afraid of what the fallout is going to be that you end up pretending with them, right? But we're just going to pretend nothing's wrong. We're going to enjoy when things are calm, and it's going to suck when things are bad. But that's what we do, right? I was totally playing the chameleon to the nth degree, to try to make that relationship work. And it ultimately did not. So yeah, just to know, if there are any relationships that you have like that in your life, get support. Again, you can talk with professionals. In retrospect, I probably should have reached out to somebody like a professional to find out, well, how do I have an intervention with this person? Right? This person needed an intervention, and she nearly died too, right? Because I never said anything, and that's scary. She's in a good place now, like healthy, well, recovered, but could have died, and so that's something to be very mindful of with our relationships. They are incredibly fulfilling. They are incredibly powerful. We are not getting through this life without lots and lots of relationships, but we also want to be responsible about the relationships we have in our lives. We want to be responsible about our own energy, right? Being that high vibe person so that we're attracting other high vibe people, and we can be very cognizant of what other people's energy level is so that we are investing our time and our energy and our resources in people who are going to ultimately help us fulfill our mission and enjoy our lives. Right? Hey, Melinda, you're the only one on, so I didn't know if you wanted to ask any questions you have at this point.
I did have a question that I wrote down. That was when you were talking about finding team members who balance you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've mentioned some different personality tests and things like that in the training, and I actually haven't I don't think I've looked them up yet, so this might be why I'm asking this question.
Yeah.
But how do you recommend that we identify others' values and their personality types?
Okay. Having an understanding of your own personality type is key at first. So I would recommend either the DISC assessment or the Myers-Briggs. And I'm more like, I will say this, and if anybody else has worked with other personality assessments and you're big fans of them, like definitely post in the community too, because there's like, I'm not a believer that there's only one way to do something or only one test is the right test. Myers-Briggs gives you a lot of information, but it's very robust. Right? If you're looking to do a deep dive and want to be researching personality types for a while and reading up on them, Myers-Briggs can be very interesting. What I find is DISC is easy to use and understandable, right? Like if you're looking for something quick and dirty, that will help you understand your own personality. And it talks a lot about communication styles and preferences. But it's also because it is so easy, it's easy to understand the other personality types and identify them. That's been my experience. Myers-Briggs is incredibly interesting to me and engaging, but DISC is easy to use and very understandable. It's user-friendly.
That's totally where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, and I can set you up with a DISC assessment and go over it if you're interested in that. I would have to figure out the fee because I have to buy the assessment. I think the last time I looked it up, it was about $65 just to buy the indicator. But then going over your results and explaining the other personality types, that would take a couple hours. So we can, if you're interested in that, we can talk about that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And that is super helpful because, I can recognize, like, I'm a personality type where a couple of things for me are going on. I'm like engaging in people and I like to have a good time and, like all of that stuff. But I'm also like, we have deadlines. I have I like to talk in bullet points, get to the point. If we're at a party, I want to hear your long story if it's interesting, right? That sort of thing. If we're in a meeting and we got to get shit done, like seriously, get to the point, so I have a little bit of both of that going on. When I think about people who are going to balance me out, I think of the people who are also, they're more, focused on harmony, and relationships, in regards to the individual. My personality type looks more at like systems, like organization. I'm focused on people, but it's from an organizational. How does this impact, the group as a whole, right? How is this going to impact everybody? Whereas there's a personality type that's on the opposite end of the spectrum from me that focuses on the individual, right? So for me, and it's not to say I don't consider it the individual, but I think more about how is this going to affect everybody as an organization? And then I'll go to, well, who's going to get impacted individually? Whereas this other type thinks about individuals first and then goes to, the organization. I'm also more of a visionary, high level. I love ideas. I love new initiatives. I get excited about a creative idea, but I don't want to do the legal paperwork. I don't want to have to write the procedures. I don't want to have to be the one analyzing the report every morning, right? But there are people who love that stuff. And like details and documentation and legal, accounting, bookkeeping, all of that stuff. So, there are people who love that. It's not that I can't do that stuff. It's just, it would be very draining for me to do. So if my next hire in my business would probably be more like an operations or a business manager, like somebody who would be able to take all of the content, all of the information in my business and then make suggestions, hey, we should be doing this. We should be doing that. Da, 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 da. Or I'd be like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I'll do my thing, tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. Just don't make me put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yep. That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's very helpful.
Okay, cool. Like your person who's going to write proposals for you,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good example. I was thinking about that as I was talking through it. Like, that's not what you love. It's your kryptonite, but for this other person you hired, they probably love it. Like the numbers and what changes and if we change this, how does it impact everything else? Like, the bean counters and all of that. I know people who love that stuff. Love it. Right. And they would throw up at the idea of having to like talk on a call like this.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to do this. And I'm just like, what? This is easy.
Awesome. That reminds me of like my bookkeeper who's in BNI. We're both starting up a new chapter in Kennebunk. And so we're not doing it solo like you did. We're tag teaming it.
Yeah.
And it's so cool pairing up with her because she helped me realize, there's all these details like Dropbox and Google Drive. And I'm like, I don't know how to use any of this garbage. I'm like, I hope we can do one-to-one. So you show me how, because I don't know any of it. And she's like, you don't even have to worry about that. That's where I come in, because she's the details person.
Right.
She's like, you are the high energy cheerleader that keeps people motivated and keeps people coming here. I'm the behind the scenes detail person. I was like, oh, this is going to be so much more enjoyable now.
Right. And both of your roles are vital, right? You need the high energy rah-rah cheerleader, but if things aren't getting done, if it's not organized, if it's not documented, right? If the boxes aren't getting checked, guess what? This chapter doesn't launch. Right? But if people don't show up, if they don't feel good about it, if they don't enjoy coming and they're not excited, guess what? This chapter doesn't launch. So the fact that you two can split those roles, neither one is more important than the other. They're both vital. And what a relief that you can each take the role that fits your personality and your strengths, and you can leave the other stuff to the other person.
It's huge. It's insane how much it has helped my energy level in like going into something like this that it felt so daunting before because of those details.
Right.
Because of my kryptonite.
Right. And like having somebody else doing your proposals, like same experience. It was so daunting. It was, drained your energy. Now there's a learning curve, right? In the transition period where you have to build trust and train and build the relationship and figure out the stuff. And I'm sure you and Stacy, because I know you're talking about Stacy, you and Stacy had to kind of figure out, like at first, like, okay, who's going to do what? You probably figured it out pretty quickly, but there probably was a little bit of a dance at first to be like, are you okay if I'm just doing this? Are you okay if I'm just doing this? Like you probably felt like you were both getting away with something. Yeah. Right? Until you realized the other person was relieved that the other was taking over what they were taking over. But initially it was the like relationship, trust building, like determining what each other's roles were, and then trusting each other to do what you do best.
That's so true. And we both had this conversation a couple weeks ago where we felt like we weren't doing enough because what we were doing just comes natural. It's not something that takes extra effort, and it doesn't steal our energy. We're invigorated by it. And so that was a huge relief.
You know what, I'm laughing because that's the relationship I have with my co-chair on for the Maine Women's Conference. We co-chair the programming committee. And there was one meeting where it's like, I just don't feel like I'm doing enough to support you. I feel like you're doing so much work and I'm slacking. And I was just like, because she literally handles a bulk of the communication and the details, but I'm the one handling the difficult conversations in the board meeting. Right. And that's the part that scares the bejesus out of her. And she knows she doesn't handle well. So she's like, you're amazing. And I was like, I show up and I say things like that's, and I don't, but in between meetings, you're sending out all these emails, you're putting together these plans, you've got these spreadsheets, like the amount of time and effort and work you're doing. She's just like, but her feeling was, the fact that you can have those conversations and they go well, that on the other side of the board meeting, we don't have to spend time like apologizing or, explaining or retracting or anything like that. Cause she's like, that's where we would be if I spoke. If I was the spokesperson, like there would be apologies, there would be, I didn't mean it that way. She's like, I would have to spend so much time dealing with hurt feelings and misunderstandings. Like the fact that you say it, you take care of it in the meeting and it's done and it goes over beautifully. I'll do spreadsheets all day. I was just, and for me, like it was the opposite. Like all I do is show up, like I said, and but there's so much appreciation for what the other person does and what they bring to the table that you almost feel like you're getting away with something. But we both feel that way on both ends. Like I feel like I'm getting away with something because what I do is not that hard. And that is a beautiful partnership. When it feels easy. And with relationships, there's always things that need to be explained, right? There's always like communication that maybe didn't go as well, or you were unclear about what the role was for a particular situation, that sort of thing. There's checking in, that sort of thing. Relationships are not set it and forget it. Right? But if you're putting in even the minimal amount of maintenance work, checking in, making sure the other person feels appreciated, right? Here's what I've got. What do you have going on? That will keep the relationship in a good place for a long, long time. Usually I find that the mistakes we make in relationships is we just assume they're good. Like, oh, I thought we were good. Like I didn't check in with you, or I didn't, ask, or because I thought we were okay. It's like we have to intentionally check in and ask and make sure things are good.
Good point.
Yeah, it's kind of like date night and in romantic relationships. Like you almost have to have like an equivalent to a date night with all the relationships in your life. They may not happen as often, but there's got to be that check-in. Like, hey, I've been thinking about you. Are we good? Like, should we talk about our roles again? Are we still good with the way things are? That sort of thing. It's just it's the minor maintenance. That's important.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not that I can think of. That was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That was fun for me. And so for those of you who are watching the recording, I hope this was helpful for you. You don't have to wait till Thursday to ask questions. You can ask them in the group, but I'm going to be here Thursday night. And if you can't make the call and you have questions, send them to me ahead of time, because people have found those to be incredibly helpful when I'm reading questions on the call and answer them. So even if you can't be there to ask your questions, send them to me, because if you have that question, chances are someone else may not even realize they have that question, and it's helpful to hear it as well. All right, I'll let you go, and Melinda, I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.